Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and we are here and we are live. And it is week number 7. And because it's like a tradition, I have to say it. Lucky week number 7. Yay! All right, got to do it. Got to do it every time. How we doing? How are we feeling coming out of week 6 in the NFL? I tell you how a lot of the league is feeling. A lot of the league is feeling beaten up. Like, injuries are going to be one of the defining talking points in this episode, probably more so than any week since like week 1. Like there's a lot of games. I think upwards of 10 or 11 of the 15 games are impacted in one way or another by a fairly significant injury. We're going to talk about those because who doesn't love talking about people being hurt? We're going to talk about those. We're going to talk about a whole lot more here in our week 7 episode and a part 3 a Minshew. You guys like chat was popping off before I even showed up. Looks like we got Chad in the house. We got Gio in the house. Andrew Warren is here saying, I gave you a shout out on my picks. I saw that. Thank you very much, my friend. Half Moon is here. First time this season. Holy cow. We got a full house. I'm loving this. All right. Let's get this train going. First of all, how's the audio sound? Mic sounds okay? Not crackly? Sounds all right? Just want to make sure. Excellent. Beautiful. In 5, 4, 3. What's happening, everybody? Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter, and welcome to week number 7 of my weekly NFL football pick show for the 2024 NFL season and postseason. And we're coming off of a week where I found quite a bit of success in the picks from week 6, which is awesome. Went 9-5 straight up across the 14 games last week. Even money against the spread at 7-7, and on the totals, even found success on the totals going 8-6. So we really enjoy that, where we're at least 500 across the board. I would have liked to have hit double digits straight up, but I'm not going to poo-poo 9-5. On the season, now 4 games above 500, picking the league straight up at 48-44, which is not that great. But, we've been kind of treading water around 500 for most of the season. Against the spread, 50, 39-3 on the season. So funny enough, I hit 50 wins against the spread before I hit 50 wins straight up, which for me is weird. And on the totals, now just 3 games under 500 at 44, 47, and 1. So we're definitely moving in the right direction coming off of week 6. Let's keep it going. In the Bridgewater's Finest Pick'em pool, I am in 21st place out of 34, bringing in 445 confidence points. It's right exactly around the 59% mark. So definitely not where I want to be. However, 59% will certainly take it. Brought in 90 of 105 confidence points last week, going 9-5. So on average, my picks brought in 10 points apiece. That is pretty awesome. That's 85.7%. It's one of my best weeks of the season. It was not good enough to win the week because, and I'm so glad a lot of people are here for this, a miraculous thing happened. A thing that literally has not been done, I don't think, ever in this league outside of a playoff situation where, there's maybe only 8 games max. Not 1, not 2, but 3 people last week went 14 for 14. 3 people in the pool last week were perfect, picking all the games in week 6. 3 teams bringing in all 105 confidence points from last week. And then we had a couple of other teams who only got 1 wrong. Right? Got their 1-point game or their 2-point game wrong. I think there were 5 or 6 people who had at least 103 of 105 points. It was crazy. One of the most successful weeks that we have ever had in the pick'em pool. Super, super awesome. If you were one of those players who went 14 for 14, that's pretty fantastic. Tyler's picks, my Chris's friend Tensa, is still the overall leader in the pool, 524 of 754 possible confidence points. That's a clip of 69.5%. It is just below the historic championship pace, which is usually around 70%. So he's just shy of that right now. But Tyler was one of the three that went 105 for 105. Tough to catch the guy that's at the top when he is absolutely perfect. So shout out to you if you went 14 for 14 last week, and shout out to Tyler for remaining the overall leader. We'll take a peek now into Fantasy Corner, which is, of course, brought to you by the Dynasty Trade Calculator. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're like me, if you've gone into Dynasty, Keeper, and long-term fantasy football, the Dynasty Trade Calculator is absolutely, positively for you. The Dynasty Trade Calculator is one of the absolute best resources available to you online for Dynasty, Keeper, and long-term fantasy football. Player rankings, trade evaluations, great podcasts with a lot of great experts on that page. And it does not matter how your league is configured, the Dynasty Trade Calculator has got you covered. My affiliate link is down below in the description, where you can get access for as little as a cup of coffee to one of the absolute best resources available online for Dynasty, Keeper, and long-term fantasy football. The folks over at the DTC are awesome. Now, I am on a bit of a hot streak here in fantasy over the last couple of weeks. Last week, I went 7-1 across my 8 fantasy football teams, and that is part of a 13-3 hot streak over the last 2 weeks. My fantasy teams are on absolute fire right now, bringing my overall record on the season to 29-19, 10 games over 500 across those 8 teams. In my best ball leagues, I'm still in first place in one of them. My paid one, I have moved up from 8th to 7th, so feel like I'm trending in the right direction that way, which is really, really nice. So still in 8th place in one of them, but hey, the fact that I've been leading one of those best ball leagues basically from week 1, I think is pretty awesome. So across, 8 teams going 7-1, had a lot of success in my 2 dynasty leagues this past week as well. In the professionals, I picked up the win against Rich, which pulls my record to 4-2 on the season. And in Ante & Co, got my second win of the season, my second straight win, this one coming against Chris's wife, Rachel, going to 2-4 now on the season. Week 7, I have matchups with Tony and Evan in those 2 leagues, and those are both projected wins for me as well, which would be, 3 straight wins potentially in Ante & Co, a league where I'm trying to defend a championship, which is definitely where we want to be. I said this in the league chat. Don't let your boy into his zone. So if I get in my zone, bad news for everybody else. And we'll take this opportunity, as I always do, to let you know that if you go to the description of this live stream, of the VOD, of the podcast episode, however you gain access to this show, you can find all of my results from last week, all my straight up against the spread and over under plays for week 7 in the NFL. You can find information on joining the Bridgewater's Finest Pick'em Pool for season 13 of this show. And you can find information on joining the NFL YouTube Prognosticators Facebook page, where we talk about football all week long, a ton of great creators and a ton of great input and content that you're going to find on the NFL YouTube Prognosticators Facebook page. So you're not really going to be able to see this, I don't think, but I'm going to try to adequately show you on my paperwork here. You see like the box there that says injuries/trades. So normally like that column is usually not full. The column this week is so full, I had to steal extra space off to the side. And that's how many injuries and stuff we have to talk about in these games. I kind of said it in the preamble. I believe of the 15 games that we're going to talk about this week, like 11 of them are impacted by either an injury or a significant trade. So there's been a lot that's gone on here in the last couple of weeks. Let us waste no time here whatsoever and get into the Thursday night football matchup, which is the Denver Broncos traveling to New Orleans to take on the Saints. Pardon me, folks. My thing is doing a thing, and we want to fix the thing. There we go. So, Denver and the New Orleans Saints. New Orleans is a team that I still really don't know exactly what to do with, especially given how beaten up they are right now. They're beaten up in multiple areas on the offensive side. They're beaten up on the defensive side. I don't particularly think this defense is all that good. At least over their last 4 games, they're bottom 5 in the league in yardage allowed, bottom 5 in the league in points allowed, and the offense really has not done much of anything to keep up. Now, obviously, we're looking at a situation where the starting quarterback is injured, and this game could very well wind up being defined by who better covers their superstar that they lost last week to a concussion, specifically a concussion. On Denver side, Patrick Surtain, one of the absolute best defensive backs in the entire NFL. And on New Orleans side, Chris Olave. They both suffered concussions last week. I have a policy when it comes to concussions. I lean on the player missing the next game. And that's mostly, I think, validated, that when you have a player that suffers a diagnosed concussion, usually they don't play the next week. It's looking increasingly doubtful that Derek Carr plays, which means it's probably going to be Spencer Rattler again for the Saints. I didn't think he looked particularly impressive through a couple of picks. They asked him to do a little too much in that game. I would expect them to try to lean a lot on Alvin Kamara. He's coming into this game with the questionable tag as well. So the Saints are just absolutely beaten up. And if there's one unit in this game that I have the utmost amount of faith in, it's the defensive side for the Denver Broncos. I understand that Surtain does so much for that defense, and he insulates the run defense, and he's a dynamite pass defender. I get all that. But I do believe top to bottom, this Broncos defense is able to handle a Spencer Rattler-led offense, especially one without Chris Olave. So we're definitely going to be pretty heavy on the Denver Broncos here, even though they're on the road in New Orleans. Let's take Denver to beat the Saints. On the line, the Saints are taking +2.5 here as a home dog. The Broncos have covered 4 times against the spread this season, so I feel really good about laying the -2.5 here. I like them to win. It's a small price to pay. Let's lay the -2.5. Total in the game set at 37, and I'm kind of such a low total, but I'm kind of bucking against the trend here of the Saints, who have hit 4 overs so far this season. I think this is the Broncos defense's game to lose. So let's lean on the under here on the points. I don't expect a lot from the Saints on the offensive side. Under 37 points in Denver, New Orleans. We're going to take like a 23-10, something like that, a 23-10 final in favor of Bo Nix and the Denver Broncos. 23-10, Broncos win, Broncos cover, under on the points. Now, bunch of weirdness and interesting stuff happening with the scheduling this week. Obviously, we got 2 teams on bye, Chicago and Dallas. So it's going to be 15 games this week. 2 of those games are happening on Monday night. Once again, the NFL is committed to this bad idea of dueling Monday night football games. So they're committed to the idea. We've got that again this week. We've also got a game in London, which is the one that we're going to talk about next, the Patriots and the Jags. So we got a London game. We've got, 1 fewer game than we would normally have. We got 2 Monday nighters. So here's what we're going to do. 4 games, Packers game, 3 games, Sunday Night Football, 3 games, the 2 Monday nighters. Get it, got it good. And since you understood, let's go ahead with that Patriots and Jags game, which, to use a line from the venerable Gio, who is in the chat right now, This is a game that could very easily, along with another one, get canceled due to lack of interest. I don't know who, but the most hardcore fans of either of these teams are really gonna make a point of watching this game early on Sunday. Crazy. So you got the Patriots and the Jags, two teams that I and my model 1000% do not trust. The Jags are getting a little better on the offensive side. They're moving the ball a little bit better. They're putting up points a little bit better than they were earlier. Over the last 4 games, they're averaging just under 21. So they're doing like something on the offensive side. This might be the worst defense in football. The Jags might be the single worst defense in the NFL. 35 points a game over the last 4 games. Awful. Awful. Like abjectly cannot win with it. Like just can't. Even against a rookie quarterback in Drake May, who has, had some flashes and had some moments, but hasn't been like a Jaden Daniels world beater by any means. I'm calling this back-to-back road games for the Jags because even though it's 2 straight games in London, one in Tottenham and this one now at Wembley, and there's obviously a ton of ties for them over there with the Khan family and all that fun stuff. It's not in Jacksonville. So I'm calling it back-to-back road games for the Jags. Again, neither one of these teams are teams that my model particularly likes or enjoys. Jacksonville has the added loss of losing Travis Etienne in their game last week. He has a hamstring injury, looking at probably 1 to 2 weeks at least, which means it is hashtag Tank Bigsby season. If you can get Tank Bigsby in fantasy, you are absolutely positively going to want to do that. I think I got to look at this, even though the Jags are laying heavy in this game, I think the Patriots win this game outright. The Jags are playing some of the least reliable football I've ever seen them play, and think about the territory that covers. I think we're going to have to go with the Patriots here. I'm going to take the Patriots on the road, quote unquote, in London to get the win over the hapless Jacksonville Jaguars, and maybe this is what finally prompts the coaching change that we're all pretty confident is coming in Jacksonville. Neither one of these teams are great against the spread, but asking Jacksonville to lay -5.5, either way that you're going on this game, take the points in this one for sure. I like the Patriots to win the game outright, so give me the +5.5 for sure. Total in the game here set at 43. I think this is actually a pretty good total for where this is ultimately going to land. I'm barely going to take an over on this. I think we get like pointed or half pointed here either way. I'm going to go like a 23-21 for the Patriots. Maybe they walk it off with a field goal, whatever. I'm going to take a very, 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 very moderate over on the 43 points in New England and Jacksonville. Patriots win the game 23-21. They win and cover the +5.5. Let's go to Atlanta now, where the Falcons are going to play host to the Seattle Seahawks, a tale of two teams going in exact opposite directions. The Falcons are clicking along on the offensive side over their last 4 games, averaging just under 400 yards a game and just under 30 points a game. So they're scoring very well. The defense is not great, but the offense is playing well enough right now that even if they get into a shootout, which the total in this game would have you believe, the total's at 51, would have you believe it's going to be a bit of a shootout, but their offense has been able to keep up and to, find success in games like that. The Seahawks do have the benefit of the long week here because they did play on Thursday night of last week. The Seahawks are one of the bottom 10 in terms of efficiency across the NFL over the last 4 games. They're moving the ball very well. They're just not scoring points consummate to how they're moving the ball. And this defense is still really, really struggling to keep points off the board. And offenses have been able to do almost whatever they want over the last while. No significant injuries to talk about in this game, which is a rarity this week. I got to lean on the Falcons here. It's a good situation for them at home. I like Atlanta in this one in a big, bad way. Falcons beat the Seahawks in Atlanta. On the line, Atlanta's laying -3. I like them to win. It's a small price to pay. Let's lay the -3 points on the Falcons. Total in the game set at 51. Now, Seattle has gone over in, I think, 5 of their 6 games so far this season. So there's been a lot of points scored in Seattle Seahawks games. And once again, I like what I'm seeing out of the Falcons on the offensive side. There's something about this number that I don't trust. It feels like such a slam dunk obvious over, and I think the public is heavy on the over um in this one. I think I'm going to go under on this. There's something about this number that just doesn't sit well in my gut. I think it's close. Like, I think it's a high 40. For some reason, I just don't think this game gets into the 50s. So I'm going to take a marginal under here. I'm going to go like 28-20, something like that. Falcons win, and that's a pretty believable final score, I think. Falcons win. Falcons cover the -3, but give me an under on that 51 point total. Let's go to Buffalo now, where the Bills come into this game on the short week, playing host to the Tennessee Titans, a team that has been struggling fairly mightily over their last chunk of games, one of the least efficient defenses in the NFL over the last month. Now, offensively, their efficiency has been pretty good, but that's because they're, bottom 5 in the league in yardage. They do not move the ball very well. They have been fairly lucky, been fairly, like, if this was a hockey team, you'd talk about high PDO, right? Like, you'd talk about high puck luck, for lack of a better term. That's kind of what the Titans have been doing on the offensive side over the last month or so, but far from reliable for sure. Buffalo, they're a team that my model likes a decent amount. They're a very efficient offense that just brought in Amari Cooper. They pulled off a deal after they saw the Jets make the trade that they made, obviously, which we'll talk about here in just a little bit. Buffalo saw that and kind of saw the landscape of the AFC. They went to an AFC trading partner in the Cleveland Browns, bringing in Amari Cooper. They move a 3rd and a 7th round pick to Cleveland in exchange for Amari. He joins a receiving core where basically the biggest competition for targets comes from the running backs, Keon Coleman and Dalton Kincaid. So I imagine Amari's going to come in and make a pretty big impact for Josh Allen and that Buffalo Bills offense. The Titans are also dealing with an injury on their side of things. Tyjae Spears dealing with a hamstring injury, kind of the same as we talked about with Travis Etienne. I'm looking at probably a 1 or 2 week absence there, which does definitely hurt the run game for the Titans. I don't see any reason not to take Buffalo in this game. They're a very heavy favorite, which we'll talk about here in a second. But I like the Bills to get the win over the Titans. So Chad's kind of got it in the chat here. Buffalo star players playing cheap, taking Tennessee at +8.5. So I got this line at 9.5, which is worse. Buffalo laying -9.5 at home. So that's a number that I definitely don't like. Like, it's almost double digits. You all know I've got my thing with double digit spreads. As I'm sitting here looking at my pick sheet, I took the point. I laid the points. I laid the -9.5. And the reason that I laid the -9.5 is I'm sitting here trying to think, what's a reasonable point total for the Tennessee Titans in this game? If they struggle to run the ball, which I'm going to assume they're going to without their top back, if they struggle to run the ball, what is the upside of this offense? And I kept coming back to 14 points, 16, maybe 17, but 14 is what kept sticking in my head. If they can only get to 14 points, I don't see how Buffalo doesn't cover this number, because I'm pretty confident Buffalo's going to be able to put 30 on them. That's just me. I'm pretty confident that that's what the Bills are going to be able to do in this game. So, how do I reconcile not covering -9.5. Ultimately, I couldn't. I'm going to hold my nose on it, but I'm going to lay the -9.5 points on the Buffalo Bills. Total in this game set at 41. I think it's a fairly good total, but I do have it going over by a few points here. Half Moon made a great point in the chat. The Titans do have a very, very, very good total defense. Their scoring defense, not quite as good, but their total defense has been quite good especially over the last like month or so. But the efficiency's not quite there for me. So I do feel like this gets over by a little bit, and I do think Buffalo covers that number. So give me like a 30-14. Let's land there. 30-14. It's what's in my gut. It's what I'm going with. Bills win. Bills begrudgingly a little bit, cover the -9.5, and the total goes over the 41 points. And let's look at one more game here before we get to the Packers game, which is the Cincinnati Bengals in Cleveland taking on the Browns. The Browns, of course, trading away their star wide receiver, Amari Cooper. They bring back a 3rd-round pick and a 7th-round pick for making that deal. The Browns will also likely be without Jerome Ford at the running back position. Another hamstring injury. A lot of hamstring injuries this week. Another hamstring injury, probably looking at 1 to 2 weeks. And I think there's a pretty good chance that Nick Chubb makes his season debut this week. If he's ready to, I think he'll be back out there. But I would expect probably about a month's worth of games of ramping back up to the Nick Chubb that we know over the last couple of seasons. I'm on the Bengals pretty heavy in this one for sure. Division game, which there's a lot of points involved in the spread, but even though the Bengals are on the tail end of back-to-back road games, they've been steadily playing better and better and better. The defense is still really suspect, but the offense, I think, is humming along really well here over the last month. So let's take the Bengals on the road in Cleveland to beat the Browns. So on the line, Cincinnati's laying -6 here as a fairly heavy road favorite in a division game. So once again, I kind of wondering about that spread. But again, sort of the same deal. What's the realistic upside here for the Browns on offense? And it feels like they almost don't have an upside. Like this is a very, very poor offense and a defense that's not playing up to the expectations that you would have had for them in the preseason because the offense is not very good. It just puts them in so many bad situations. So I think I'm going to have to lay the -6. It's under a touchdown. It's a huge number to lay, and Cincinnati probably hasn't like earned being that much of a favorite, but I'm going to lay this. I'm going to lay the -6 here on the Bengals. Total in the game set at 42. Excuse me. Cincinnati has hit 4 overs so far this season. Cleveland's only hit 2, but since I have the Bengals basically doing whatever they want in this game, let's take the over here. Over the 42 points in Cincinnati. Cleveland, I'm going to take like a 31-16, something like that. Basically double them up. Bengals win. Bengals cover. Over on the points. All right, let's see. I think I've missed some stuff in the chat here, so we're going to quick go back. Chad from Regina got 10 out of 14. Excellent. Well done. Let's see. Guy who's world famous for taking the man's money is in the house. We love that, Gio. Take nothing but dogs and unders this week. Vegas wants their money back. Hey, could be, could be. Let's see. Andrew was here. Carver's coming in with his new friend this week. Oh boy, here we go. We got some Carver the Clown coming. Audio's good. Audio's good. Maybe you can be a GM for Carolina if you're doing well in fantasy football. Hey, they don't have my phone number, but they know how to get me on Twitter. What's the drink today? Chad, straight water. Nothing but water. No, it is water. All right. Have to get back to work. Good luck this week. Thank you so much, Andrew. Appreciate you stopping by. Highlight of the Pats-Jags game will be the T interval. Enjoy that. We know we enjoy that around this place. Seahawks-Falcons going in opposite directions. Titans stink, would probably lose to Hamilton. They definitely lose to Hamilton. No doubt about that. Browns can't seem to get into the 20s. 16 is a good number. Appreciate that. Martin, how you doing, my friend? And Gio, road faves went 5-0 against the spread last week. Should reverse this week. Take the Browns. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, that's a pretty strong trend that we know will sort of sink back towards the middle, but can't do it in my heart. All right, let's go to Lambeau Field. The Green Bay Packers at home playing host to a Houston Texans team that's going to come in on the tail end of back-to-back road games. Houston is another team that my model doesn't particularly know what to do with. They move the ball very well. They do a good job at keeping limiting yardage to opposing teams, but in terms of what they allow on the scoreboard, they allow, at least over the last 4 games, they've allowed exactly the same number of points as they've scored. So their defensive efficiency is kind of in the toilet here over the last month. It's one of the bottom 5 teams in the NFL over this period of time. The Packers obviously coming off a big win last week against an Arizona team that has kind of cratered a little bit, and we'll talk more about the Cards when we get to that game. So they beat up on an opponent that's not as good as them. Like, all you can ever do is play the team that's in front of you, but we all know that the Cards and the Packers are not on the same level. But that obviously really shifted the numbers in here to where my model is now quite a big fan of the Packers on the defensive side, top 10 in efficiency. Offense, they're top 5 in total offense over their last 4 games, about 400 yards a game. This offense is clicking along very, very well. Now, for the Packers, they will be probably without Dontavian Wicks this week. He injured his shoulder in the game last week. I'm going to lean out on him. Nothing official at this point other than just the fact that he's got the questionable tag. But again, they're so deep at wide receiver that I feel like is a loss that they can insulate better than a lot of other teams could. Jordan Love's playing out of his mind right now. I don't love the fact that this defense is not in Houston is not nearly as efficient as it should be, because they've done some really good things over the last month. They've been really good at limiting teams' opportunities, but they're still giving up points. They're giving up points far beyond what they should be for the yardage that they're giving up. It's a red flag for me. They're a question mark for me. The Packers very much are not. If this game was in Houston, I would love this as an upset play. I don't. It's in Green Bay. Give me Jordan Love and give me the Green Bay Packers to get the win over Houston. On the line, the Packers are only laying -2.5 as a home favorite. They've got 4 spread covers this season. I like them to win. It's a small price to pay. Give me the -2.5. Total in the game set at 47.5 points. This is a very good number because I do think like mid-40s is right about where this game is going to wind up. The Texans have only hit 2 overs this season, whereas the Packers are kind of middle of the pack. Because again, that Packers defense has been playing very good defense over the last month. I think I'm going to take an under on this. It's again, very close, a very good number, but give me the under on the 47.5 points. I'm going to go like a 27-18, 2-possession win. I like it. Under the 47.5 points, and let's lay the -2.5 on Green Bay. All right, 3 quick games, and then we are going to go to the Sunday night football game, which is in Pittsburgh. But we're going to start in Indianapolis, where the Colts are likely to welcome back Anthony Richardson on the offensive side of the ball. And this week, they're going to play host to a Miami Dolphins team coming into this game off of their bye, and a team that I am hard fading at this point until they can prove to me that they remember how to play football. Hopefully the bye week is exactly what that team needed. And hopefully they kind of got their heads back on straight and come out looking some semblance of the Miami Dolphins. It can't just be, well, we're going to suck out loud until Tua comes back. Like that can't be the way that this is going to continue. So hopefully for their sake, they come out of the bye week and look something like the Miami Dolphins. I think not enough people are talking about the Indianapolis Colts on the defensive side over the last month or so. Like, I don't love what they've done. They've given up a lot of yardage, but they've been very bend but don't break over the last month or so, giving up about 385 yards, but less than 24 points per game. So they're giving up a lot of yardage, but they're turning touchdowns into field goals. They're keeping those points off the board. And the offense seems like it's been playing fairly well. Some of that, a good deal of that anyway, with Joe Flacco at the helm. So again, likely Anthony Richardson coming back. It's a bit of a struggle with Richardson because, again, I think people forget or just don't give enough credence to, like, this is still a rookie who has played like 7 games. They've been across 2 seasons because he's been injury prone in the early part of his career. But we don't, I think, treat him like the rookie that we need to treat him like, and that the fact that it is very much a project and it's growing pains for him, and we've seen that in his couple of starts so far this season. If he comes back, this is a very soft defense. It's a pretty good indication of where he's at, not only in the injury rehab, but kind of in his development as a quarterback. I like the Indianapolis Colts in this one. Let's take Indy at home to get the win over the Dolphins. On the line, the Colts are laying -3.5 here, so you do have to buy that extra hook of the half point above a field goal. What I will say is the Colts have covered 5 times against the spread this season. So I am going to go ahead and lay that -3.5. It is above my small price to pay threshold, but I'm going to go ahead and lay it because, again, the Colts have found quite a bit of success against the spread this season. Total in the game set at 43. Miami has only hit 1 over all season long, but this is such a beatable number, and I don't really trust their defense until I see it. So I'm actually going to go over on this. I'm going to go like a 26-20 in favor of Indianapolis. I have Miami looking a lot better, still just not quite getting the job done. Colts win. Colts cover the -3.5. Give me a marginal over on the 43 points, 26-20 final. Now, you want to talk about a great candidate for game of the week? The Detroit Lions on the road in Minnesota taking on the Vikings. Vikings coming into this game off of their bye. Detroit coming in on the tail end of back-to-back road games. So, second straight road game for the Lions. Minnesota should be well rested and ready to roll. Interestingly enough, I think the Vikings just traded for Cam Akers. Was that a thing that I saw happened? That like the Texans traded Akers to the Vikings, something like that. So, obviously, the big storyline in this game was the injury to Aiden Hutchinson, a gruesome, gruesome leg injury that is going to. He had surgery immediately. He had surgery that night. He's on the shelf now for 4 to 6 months, which doesn't totally eliminate the possibility of like a superhuman rehab to where, like, if the Lions make the Super Bowl, the possibility that Aiden Hutchinson could play in that game is at the very least on the table, right? Like, it's not a slam dunk guarantee that it would happen, but February, it's at least a possibility. Now, to see an injury like that and say, oh, yeah, that guy's going to play in a game in 4 months, nobody would ever say that definitively. However, at the very least, the possibility exists. We definitely wish Aiden Hutchinson a quick recovery because that guy on the football field is just such a pleasure to watch. Absolutely love Hutch. This is a battle of 2 teams here that my model absolutely loves. Loves them both on the offensive side, loves them both on the defensive side too. We don't have to, or we shouldn't be sleeping on the way the Lions have played defensively over the last month. They're giving up fewer than 18 points a game over their last 4 games. It's not just an offensive powerhouse. This is a team that plays extremely solid team defense. We saw Brian Branch last week have just an incredible game. I believe he was like NFC Defensive Player of the Week or something like that. Um, don't sleep on the Lions on the defensive side. Offensively, I like both of these teams. They're both highly efficient. They have both put a lot of points on the board over the last month. Detroit, one of the top teams in the league, moving the football on the offensive side. I'm looking at this game very much like a win it for Hutch. That's what I think they're looking at on the Lions side coming into this game. Hostile territory, division game. There have been very few division games of the NFC North. I think there's only been one so far this season. I think it was Chicago and Green Bay. So I think this is very much the mentality coming into this game, very much a win it for Hutch. I think this is going to be easily, on an entertainment value, the most entertaining game of the week. I'm going to take the Detroit Lions here in a very marginal upset because Vegas thinks this game is going to be very, very close. I like the Lions in this one. Let's take Detroit on the road in Minnesota to get the win over the Vikings. So Minnesota is laying -1.5 against the spread. So again, a very marginal home favorite there. I like Detroit to win. Give me the +1.5. Total in the game set at 51. Minnesota's only hit one over all season long. Detroit's been kind of middling on the totals. Again, I said don't sleep on their defense. I think this winds up being something of a defensive battle despite the total. I like the under hitting here for sure. Under 51 points in Detroit, Minnesota. I'm going to take a close total to this, actually, like a 26-23. Something like that. Maybe it's a walk-off, maybe it's a last-second one. 26-23 Detroit. Lions win, Lions cover, and a marginal under on that 51-point total. And another division game of two teams that I think are actually a lot closer in skill than maybe you might think when you look at the rosters. The Philadelphia Eagles in New York taking on the Giants. And now the Giants are a team that for a while my model really loved them on the defensive side, and it still does. Like, this is still a very capable defense. But this offense is, to quote, let's see, oh God, was this a quote from? I can't remember anymore. The stinky butt. This offense is really bad. And the Eagles, their offense has not looked much better. They're coming into this game at the very least, something to prove, I guess. I'm going to very briefly mention this whole Nick Sirianni thing in Cleveland last week, I think it was in Cleveland. Or no, they were at home. Sorry, like getting into shouting matches with fans during the game, like in a game where you only beat a team that is objectively worse than you by 4, like, and then bringing your kids to the post-game interview, like you're trying to deflect the heat. How quick are we, or how far away are we, I should say, from Nick Sirianni not having that job anymore? Like, I think it's a fair conversation to have. I really do. It's gonna tick some Eagles fans off without question, and I get it. But like, there are multiple teams in that division who you could see firing their coach. One of those teams is on bye this week. Anyway, boy, between these two teams, they're both dealing with injuries. So on Philly's side, they have multiple guys with, you guessed it, hamstring injuries. Dallas Goedert and Jordan Mailata both have hamstring injuries, both likely to miss this week's game. I give them like a 1 to 2 weeks, something like that. And in New York, Andrew Thomas, one of the better tackles in the league, dealing with a foot injury. He's out long term. I think they're expecting that he probably will not play again this season. I don't know specifically what that foot injury is, But obviously it's bad news for a guy that's, again, one of the premier tackles in the NFL. This is one of those games where I really can't blame you, whichever way you happen to go on this. If you really believe in the Giants upset, I can't say I blame you. And if you really believe in the Eagles dominating a team that they're supposed to be better than, I can't really blame you for that either. I think the way I'm going to have to lean on it is probably the Eagles. I think they're objectively the better football team. Giants are still dealing with some injuries that are just kind of nagging and continuing on. Um, even though the Eagles are, obviously very shorthanded, especially on the O-line compared to last season, let's take the Eagles to get the win here. Let's take Philly to beat New York. On the line, the Giants are taking +3. I'm going to go ahead and lay the -3 on the Eagles. I like them to win. It's a fairly small price to pay. Let's lay the -3. Total in the game set at 42. The Giants have only hit one over all season long. As Gio put in the chat, Giants automatic under. We're going to take the under on this one for sure. I'm going to go like a 23-17. So it's going to come close to that number, but Eagles win at 23-17. They win, they cover under on the points. All right, let's get caught up here in chat. Let's see. Titans stink. Would probably lose to Hamilton. I think that might be where I ended off. Browns will be better handing the ball off and throwing to Chubb. He'll hit the ground running. I hope so. I mean, you want to see a guy like that succeed, especially after, an injury that was that gruesome and that difficult to come back from. Gio made the point about the road favorites being 5-0. Browns can't seem to get into the 20s in scoring. 16 is a good number. Half Moon, Houston 5-1 against the spread. Number 3 defense, 3-game winning streak. All reasons to try to get me to pick against Green Bay. Chad even likes it too, though. Upset of the week. He likes Houston. Poor Miami. Take Indy. Gio, this will be Tyler Huntley's 3rd game now plus the bye week. He should be up to speed with that offense. He absolutely should. You are 100% right. Whether he will be or not is probably another question entirely. But no, you're 100% right. Moon versus Gio in that Detroit versus Minnesota game. Absolutely. Akers is a Viking. Okay, that's what I thought. Minnesota's wanting to be up there. More spark. Lions might rally for Hutch, but not for Starsky. That's a great line. I like that a lot. Just got Brian Stafora. Just got here. Guess I'll be watching the replay. Brian, nice to have you along, my friend. Let's see. My Eagles squeeze one by. No, don't mention the Nick Sirianni thing. Nick Sirianni booed Santa Claus. That's a Philly joke. Oh, my. At this point, I prefer Ty Schmidt's impression of Nick Sirianni to the actual Nick Sirianni. Okay, so now we are going to go to the Sunday night football game. The New York Jets on the road in Pittsburgh taking on the Steelers. We'll double back to some of the late window games before we get to our pair of Monday nighters. So the New York Jets obviously made a ton of noise, landing a giant fish on the offensive side, that being Davante Adams, because baby is in a place where he always gets his bottle. The New York Giants add Davante Adams. They send a third that could become a 2 back to the Raiders in exchange for Davante, and that depends on Davante's performance as well as potential playoff success. So the Jets, again, it was a very Jets thing to do, to fire the head coach mid-season and then trade for a veteran wide receiver. Seems like you might have maybe mixed those two things up. I mean, look, Davante can only do good things for an offense that has, struggled to put up points. They're bottom 10 in scoring offense. They're bottom 10 in offensive efficiency over the last 4 weeks. So they've definitely struggled. The defense has tried to keep them afloat. And by and large, they've done an okay job at that. But yeah, this offense definitely needed a spark. 100%. Man, like Davante Adams, I don't think fixes the issues that the Jets have. They got a couple issues in particular. On the Pittsburgh Steelers side, Pittsburgh has been playing pretty darn good football lately. Offensively, they've been efficient. They haven't been, lights out, but they've been doing quite a bit with the yardage that they do get. And defensively, that defense is a juggernaut and stays a juggernaut. They're very, very good. The Jets do have the detriment of the short week here, where they just played on Monday night in a losing effort in a division game against Buffalo. And on Pittsburgh's side, it's looking like we're probably going to have Russell Wilson as the new starting quarterback. It's crazy to me that you could play as well as Justin Fields has played and get benched. I wonder if this is some Mike Tomlin fugazi, if he's just like kind of putting it out there, and then on game day he announces that it's Fields. I'll be really interested to see what the quarterback situation actually looks like in Pittsburgh for the kickoff of this game. At the end of the day, Pittsburgh is a team that my model really likes and really trusts, especially on the defensive side. And I got to see it with the Jets. I like their defense, the Jets, but I got to see that offense, and I got to see if the offense fundamentally changes. So I'm on Pittsburgh in this one pretty solidly. Let's take the Steelers at home to get the win over the Jets on Sunday night. On the line, the Steelers are actually taking plus 1.5. So this is part of my rule of 4 upsets this week. Pittsburgh covers the plus 1.5. They've got 4 against the spread covers this season. This will be another one. Total in this game set at 38. The Steelers have only hit 2 overs all season long. I'm going to lean on the defenses in this one. 2 very good ones. Lean on the under here of 38 points. I'm going to go like an 18-17, something crazy like that, like a 1-point win, maybe no touchdowns scored by the Steelers. It might just be the 6 field goals. 18-17 in favor of the Pittsburgh Steelers, who win, cover the plus 1.5, and stay under the point total. Now, remember when I told you that we had a second game that might be canceled due to lack of interest? It is this one. The Los Angeles Rams at home playing host to the Las Vegas Raiders. So obviously the Raiders were on the other side of that Davante Adams trade where they send Davante to the New York Jets. They bring in a 3rd round pick, which could potentially become a 2nd round pick. So that's a pretty decent signal to me that they're kind of tapping out a little bit on I shouldn't say tapping out because they're not necessarily doing that. The real sign that they're tapping out is if they trade Max Crosby. That's the sign that they've tapped out. So like trading Davante is like a player that didn't really want to be there anymore. So, you kind of get it. If they trade Max, then that's game over on the Raiders season right there. The Rams come into this game off the bye. My model does not like either one of these teams at all. I don't like either one of these teams on the offensive side. Really don't like the Raiders on the defensive side. They're basically both hard fades. So here's what we're going to, Gio. It's not that he's trying. He's now a 5% owner. They ratified that yesterday, I think it was. Which, if I can just add a little commentary to that, Tom Brady is going to go down in history as one of the worst broadcasters of all time. And it's not even his fault. So since they ratified that he's a 5% owner now, the NFL threw a bunch of restrictions on him on what he can and can't do in his broadcasting role. One of those is you can't go to the production meetings. So, look, I am not deeply versed in professional broadcast scenarios. I'm deeply versed in this, kind of doing my own thing. But I know how important production meetings are. I've been in pro wrestling production meetings. I've been in variety show production meetings. I know how important production meetings are. And one of his restrictions are you can't go to the production meetings because they're talking about all these other teams. And that's inside information for an owner. Like, again, if it was Tony Romo and you went to Tony Romo, and I put this on Twitter, and you went to Tony Romo and said, Tony, you can't go to the production meetings, I would trust him a little bit more because I feel like he's good enough that he can do color commentary cold. Brady is already limited as a broadcaster, and now you're telling him he can't go to the production meetings. Like, that's going to be a disaster that they're paying tens of millions of dollars a year for. Oh, what a tire fire that is. Okay, so back to this. See, here's what we do with a game that between two teams that the model hates. I'm going to take the Rams to win. They're at home. They're coming off the bye. There's more good things, I think, going for them. I'm going to take the Rams to win. However, that spread is ridiculous. I got it at -7. I believe it's better than that now. I got it at -7. No way. No way. The right play here is to take the points. So I'm going to hedge my bets here, take the probably better team to win, but hedge my bets and kind of hold my nose a little and take the +7 on the Las Vegas Raiders. Total in the game set at 43.5 points. The Raiders have hit 4 overs this year. The Rams are kind of middle of the pack with that. Again, neither one of these defenses are particularly good. That's a pretty beatable number. Give me an over here. I think this game gets into the 50s. Over 43.5 in Los Angeles, Las Vegas. Give me like a 27-23 final in favor of the Rams. So Rams win, but Raiders cover the +7 and an over on the points. This is going to be a quick one for us. The Carolina Panthers on the road in Washington taking on the Commanders. Commanders got set back last week against Baltimore. Again, I talked about it. Like, let's find out if they're ready for that step. Probably not ready for that step yet. But this is, I mean, you can't get much better in terms of a get-right game than getting the Carolina Panthers in your own building. We finally hit a week where the Panthers have not had a catastrophic injury on the defensive side of the ball, which is like, cool, you're moving forward. Washington, however, did. Jonathan Allen injuring his pec. He had surgery. He's on IR. His season is done. He's an all-pro caliber D tackle, and that definitely sucks. Like, that sucks for the Commanders, and especially as the season wears on, you so win and lose football games in the trenches. But Chad kind of pointed out here, this is your added to the ticket for free. I think that's probably the case. Jaden Daniels and the Commanders get right in this one. Let's take Washington at home to get a big win over Carolina. How big? I think they cover the -8. That's a big spread, but Washington's covered 4 spreads this season. Carolina, I think, has only covered 1. So I'm not trusting them even with this number, a pretty inflated number. I don't trust them to cover that. So let's lay the -8 on Washington. Total in the game set at 52. These two teams have combined to hit 10 overs so far this season. So give me the over in this one for sure. I think this game could hit 60. And in fact, I'm going to take it to hit 60. I'm going to go 37-23. 37-23 final for the Commanders. They win. They cover the -8 and give me a really strong over on the 52-point total. And the last game we're going to look at before we get to our dueling Monday Night Football games is the Kansas City Chiefs on the road in San Francisco to take on the Niners. All right, so Chiefs come into this game off of their bye, so again, should be well rested, should have cured what ails them in terms of the early part of the season. Again, I think it puts them behind the eight ball in terms of later on in the year having such an early bye week. But if they can get to a point where they're so far ahead in their division, they might not have to worry about it. Uh, Moon makes an excellent point. Like, no Pacheco, no Rashee Rice. Like, there's a number of people who are down for Kansas City. You're absolutely right. The Niners do come into this game with the benefit of the long week, which is good. They played on Thursday night. They've got extra time. Brock Purdy looked pretty good in that game, which is certainly nice for my fantasy team. The Niners are still a team that I don't really know what to do with. Like, I think their offense is pretty good, has been playing pretty good lately. Defensively, I'd still like to see more from them. As a total defense, they're very good, but they're giving up more points than they should be. From an efficiency perspective, I don't love them. They're below league average. We'll put it that way. Right now, it's just so tough. Excuse me. Right now, it's so tough for me to pick against Kansas City in almost any capacity. I think this is going to be a fantastic football game. Again, could be a Super Bowl preview again. It's entirely possible. The Niners are very, very, very marginal home favorites at like -1. This feels like another upset play. It does. We're gonna hold our nose on this one a little bit, and we're gonna take Kansas City. I like the Chiefs on the road in San Francisco to get the win over the Niners. I don't love this. I don't really love this game either way. Somebody definitely has to win, and I think it's going to be a good game, but tough pick. We're going to take Kansas City. So obviously, since I'm taking Kansas City to win, give me the +1 against the spread. Worth noting, the Chiefs have covered 4 spreads in 5 games, I think it is. So, they've been not only winning, but they've been covering. So we'll lean on that. Total in the game set at 47.5 points. The Niners have hit 4 of 6 overs this season. So I think we're going to go ahead and get the over in this one too. I can see this game getting into the 50s. Give me like a 28-23, something like that. Chiefs win, Chiefs cover, over on the points. All right. Now it's time for our dueling Monday Night Football games. So I believe Baltimore and Tampa kick off first. I think I'm right in saying that. Yeah, because the other game's in Arizona. So the other game's out west. So let's start in Tampa Bay. The Tampa Bay Bucs at home playing host to the Baltimore Ravens. Oh, Moon, thank you. Thank you for confirming that for me. So the Ravens picked up a win that, again, I took Washington to win that game outright. Baltimore picks up a very convincing win where their offense looked pretty good. Their offense has been humming along, moving the ball incredibly well, scoring a ton of points. I still don't love everything that I'm seeing from them on the defensive side. I do want to see them clean the defense up, but they have cleaned it up more so than they were earlier in the season. Both Monday Night Football games are AFC versus NFC. Nice. That's true. Trying to highlight maybe some dark horse Super Bowl matchups, especially that second one. But I mean, Baltimore and Tampa Bay, you can at least visualize, right? Like, that could be a possible Super Bowl matchup. It would be a dark horse Super Bowl matchup, but it could be a possible one. The Tampa Bay Bucs dropping 51 points, I believe it was, on the New Orleans Saints last week. And holy cow, did they ever whomp them. And it felt like they were doing whatever they wanted to do on the offensive side. I believe it was a big game for Bucky Irving. Just Baker Mayfield just basically doing what they want. The Bucs are a team that my model likes a lot. They move the ball very well. They're scoring a lot of points. Sort of the same deal as with Baltimore. Like, these two teams are very mirror images of each other. Very much very good offenses, scoring a lot of points, want to see more from the defense and expect more from the defensive side. Remember, last year the Bucs were one of the top defenses in the entire league. I'm getting caught up in looking at the chat. Everybody's got input, and it's all really good input, and we'll definitely get to it. No huge injuries to speak of here. I don't know whether Rachaad White will necessarily be back for the Bucs. If not, clearly I think Bucky Irving is able to shoulder the load. I think he showed that last week. Boy, this is one too where I feel like no matter which way you go on this game, I can't blame you. I feel like if I go against Baltimore 2 weeks in a row, Cat's going to start taking it personally. I really think Cat's going to start taking it personally if I do that. But I really like that spread. The spread is 3.5 points. And Tampa's getting the 3.5 points as the home dog. So I really like that spread. So it's tough because if you're going to take the plus 3.5, you might as well take the upset. But that was also kind of my thinking last week with Washington, and look what happened. I think both of these teams are prone to stinkers, and I feel like we've seen that from both of these teams earlier this year. We saw Tampa Bay lose a game that they shouldn't have. We saw Baltimore lose a game that they shouldn't have. So this is not an easy pick. I think I've got to lean on some of the stuff that I see that's being said in chat here, which is like Baltimore has a very good track record against the NFC. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to be a big coward, right? Who's ready for big coward moments? So I am going to take the Baltimore Ravens to win the game outright. But I'm going to be a big coward, and I'm going to hedge my bets and take the Bucs plus the 3.5. Tampa's covered 4 of 6 spreads this year. They're having success against the spread. So I'll take Baltimore to win. I'll take a last-second field goal to make that happen. So I'm taking the plus 3.5 on Tampa. Sudite? Sudite. Total in the game set at 49.5 points. These two teams have combined for 9 overs so far this season. Give me the over in this one for sure. It could approach 60 points. I think it winds up in a high 50. Give me a 30-27. 30-27 final score. Baltimore beats Tampa Bay in what could be a dark horse Super Bowl preview. 30-27. Ravens win, but give me the Bucs plus the 3.5 points and the over on the point total. Is Evans hurt? Perpetually. I speak as a former Mike Evans dynasty manager. So yes, but I think he will play. And the other Monday nighter is the Los Angeles Chargers on the road in Arizona taking on the Cards. And like I mentioned off the top, the Cards are in full-on free fall. The offense is playing terribly. The defense is playing terribly. The Chargers are going to be on the tail end of back-to-back road games here, but they have the one unit in this game that I have any kind of faith in at all, and that's the defense. The Chargers defense is top 5 across the board. Defensive efficiency, total defense, scoring defense. That defense is exceptionally good. And that defense will absolutely confound and frustrate a Kyler Murray who is not going to have his top receiving option available to him, likely anyway, in this game. That is Marvin Harrison Jr. He suffered a concussion last week. Again, I'm going with my policy here. I'm going to lean out on MHJ this week. And without MHJ, I just don't see how the Cardinals win this game. I really, really don't. I think James Conner is banged up as well, because I know Trey Benson got a lot of work last week. And even though the Chargers are dealing with multiple injuries at multiple position groups, I totally get that. But that's all the time. Like, the Chargers live in a perpetual state of we've got injuries across the board. It's just the existence that they live in. So I'm not going to hold that too much against them. It's just who they are. And Gio makes a good point. Giants won without Malik Neighbors a few weeks ago. That's true. You're not wrong. I might not hesitate to say the Giants might have a little more going for them without Neighbors than the Cardinals do without MHJ, at least the way they've played lately. The Giants, at the very least, have a defense that tends to play well. The Cardinals don't. They do not have that. Or at the very least, they have not shown that over the last month. I'm going to have to take the Chargers here, even though they're on the tail end of back-to-back roadies. And actually, I think, let's see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Of the 5 teams that are on the tail end of back-to-back road games, I took 3 of them to win, which would be a bit of a statistical anomaly historically, but, in the confines of a single week, not crazy. So we're going to take the Chargers here on the road in Arizona to beat the Cards. The Cards are taking +2.5 here as a home dog. Obviously, I like the Chargers to win. Let's lay the -2.5 on the Chargers. Total in the game set at 43.5 points. The Chargers have only hit 1 over so far this season. Give me the under on this one in a big bad way, because the Chargers are by no means an offensive juggernaut. Give me a 23-14 final in this one. Chargers win. Chargers cover, under on the point total. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Those are your picks for week 7 in the NFL in 2024. And as always, thank you very, very much for taking the time to stop in and see the show. That's it for me, Justin, Bridgewater's Finest on YouTube, Blockbuster_guy on Twitter. We will see you again in week number 8, and enjoy the games in week 7. All right. So that is going to end the podcast version of the show. We're here in Bridgewater's Finest After Dark. Some more contentious picks this week, which I like. I mean, we have that like every week, and it would be weird for everybody to agree on everything. I think it would be more weird than what happens normally. What happens, like what happened tonight, where there's a number of you that are on Houston. There's a number of you that are on the Niners. We're opposite. We're in opposite land on more than a few of these picks, which is nice. It's what we like to see. So, what was the pick that you liked the most? What was the pick that you hated the most? I always like to ask this question before we get out of here. So while you guys are coming up with that, I'm going to go get caught up here in chat. Let's see. Pittsburgh at +1. The quarterback, Rodgers issues with the team and staff. Old syndrome. Adams won't help this week. This is talking about the Jets game. I never guessed the Steelers right. Hey, it's like me and the Chargers. Field goal issues for the Jets. The Hail Mary at the end of the half ended up ruining my under. Yeah, I'm right there with you. Rams are like a forgotten team this year. Yeah, a lot of that's self-inflicted. Rams, but I take the +5.5. Beautiful, beautiful. Let's see. Brady's been handicapped by those rules. Absolutely. Cooper Kupp may be back this week. I haven't seen anything official about that, but yeah, there's a possibility for sure. Panthers should join the Courtesy Flush League. They wouldn't survive. Let's see. Chiefs hold back, don't show their hand in case they meet the Niners in the Super Bowl. Interesting philosophy. But I also don't think they want to lose this game, right? Still Taylor Swift pick, Kansas City +1.5. This team is a winning machine. Once again, the team that played Detroit last week will not win this week. Perfect run all year. Do we see more behind the back passes? Maybe. Or Travis Kelce laterals across like 2/3 of the field. 2 weeks in a row, the team the Lions played will be on the bye. Oh, that's interesting. Field goal game winners. I take Tampa Bay at +3.5. Awesome. Great. 50 burger for the Bucs. Should have saved some of those points for this week. Well, like I'm watching last week and I'm like, don't you guys play Baltimore last week or next week? You might want to hold on to some of that. Yeah, Baltimore owns the NFC, like you mentioned before. Lamar Jackson has a 22-3 record against the NFC in his career. Holy cow. Chargers are the team you want to bet on now that their O-line is healthy. Excellent. Moon's guesting on my radio show this week, JR. Will you do the show next week? Like I say, it's going to be tough for me to commit to doing that while the CFL is also on. And as we're getting through holiday, it's going to be kind of tough. We will definitely be in touch. I'd like to do it at some point over the next couple of weeks. But I'd like to maybe figure out a time where I have a little bit more runway to advertise it. But we will definitely chat about that. Great show. All went well. Awesome. Green Bay, yuck. Justin, do you watch the NFL pregame shows? Favorite minus Fox. I don't really. Like whichever one happens to be on prior to the game that I'm going to watch, I don't really have a favorite, right? I don't watch them a ton, but when I do, I can't really say that I have a favorite, if that makes any sense. We're just busting your balls about the Houston game, you're a Packers fan. Yeah, fair enough. I bought a Packers keychain today. I should have had it in here to show off. Chad, as a Riders fan, good job in the CFL too. Awesome, Chad. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. I love doing that CFL show every week. This week was a bit of a rush, but we're all good. As a Houston, Corey Block. As a Houston, and no, this is not one of my alt accounts. As a Houston fan, I'm pretty certain the Packers will take this game. I think Houston's injuries will catch up, and Green Bay seem to be a deeper team. Houston is better, but I see Green Bay taking this at home. Cool. That's awesome. I appreciate that. And welcome around, Corey. I don't think I've seen your name in the chat before, so welcome. I appreciate that. All right. We're going to go ahead and get you folks out of here now. We're just under an hour and 20 minutes in the stream. Thank you guys so much for taking the time, as always, to hop in and watch the show, input in the chat. I absolutely love it. Thanks so much for stopping by. We will see you again next week for week 8. Same time. If there ever is a time change, I will let you know on Twitter. Was recommended you're live. Thought I'd hop in. That's awesome, Corey. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So I do this live every week in this time slot, Wednesday nights, 7 p.m. Eastern. If I have to change the time for any reason, I always announce that on my Twitter. It's at @blockbuster_guy. So that's awesome. I really appreciate you stopping by. That's really cool. All right. So we'll see you again next week. Enjoy the games. And yeah, go Pack, go.